Welcome back to the Fire Drill. Today's episode was another one of my favorites. Before we get into why I think that, let's talk about our sponsors. First of all, Par Points, scoring app, a new way to keep score on the golf course. Super fun. Par Points, go make par. Download it today. Apple Store, Android, whatever you want. It's pretty awesome. It's a great way to do it. And also, Dormy Workshop. The word artisanal is now part of my vocabulary because of Dormy Workshop. Great club covers, putter covers, awesome stuff. So go check both of them out. They are the reason that we are able to do this great stuff. So on this week's episode of the Fire Drill, we somehow have talked about all of the following things. Corey Pavin and his VAS Cleveland irons. Purple, ugly, hideous. They look like shovels. Michael has a great story about it. Alan has a great story about being on the range with him. We talked about Greg Dorman. We talked about the comparison to Tiger Woods. We talked about that they didn't get along very well. We went into should the media have a PIP ranking? Not to pay it out because there's no payouts, but should we do that? The PIP ranking itself and how ridiculous it all is. Cam Smith winning again in his place, and how the OWGR is probably going to have to change because Cam Smith keeps winning everywhere, and he is clearly in the top whatever number of players in the world. And if he slips down, it'll kind of make a mockery of the OWGR. We talked about Sean O'Hare, which I love, and we guessed his age and how much career earnings he has. You don't probably know both. They're both ridiculous. It was great. It was Michael and Alan riffing and me trying to just stay afloat on this thing. So it's awesome. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. Hope everybody's holiday weekend. We also talked about how turkey sucks, and turkey sucks. Here's the three of us talking golf.
Hello, boys. Happy Thanksgiving.
What's up, man? How was everybody?
Good. Michael, how are you?
A little salmoned out at this point. You know how it is in the Bamberger house.
Yeah, respect. I mean, we don't have to turn this into this whole podcast into a repudiation of traditional Thanksgiving foods. But does anyone really love turkey? I mean, it's just a delivery system for other things. I mean,
yeah. And tell me the last time anyone you know or yourself has ordered turkey at a restaurant. All of us eat out 100 times a year, and we never go, you know what, is turkey on special today? No one has ever said that, ever.
That is a good insight. That is very true.
But it is a delightful holiday. And but the Fire Drill never sleeps. We're here to talk about what's happening in golf, such as it is.
They still play the skins game, Alan?
I would say one of the top 5 stories I ever wrote in my entire life was the skins game in '95. I'd done my internship at SI, and then I was back at UCLA as an undergraduate, but I was still writing for the magazine. And our beloved editor, James P. Harry, it's like, I hate the skins game. Go rip the skins game. I was like, okay. And it was so over the top. And I read it now and I blush, but of course it was grounded in truth. The whole thing was a total turkey, but I mean, it was listen to this lineup. Tom Watson, great golfer, but low on pizzazz. Corey Pavin, Peter Jacobson, who I like Jake, but he was a little past the sell-by date. And I can't remember who the fourth one was, but that was part of the thing. I mean, it started out with Nicklaus and Palmer and Trevino, and now you got Corey Pavin. I mean, it was anyway. So I have fond memories of the skins game because everyone was so mad about that story. Jacobson rode my ass for years after that because I remember saying his patter was as canned as a talk show monologue, and every time he'd see me, he's like, "Oh, I'm a talk show host. Is that what you think about me?" For years.
See, this is the Fire Drill. This is what the Fire Drill is all about. Stories like Peter Jacobson.
Well, you'll appreciate this, Ryan. Quick note on Corey Pavin. As you know, as you both know, he used the bullseye putter for years. And in part of my working through the yips, I went to a bullseye because you could go lefty and righty. So I saw him one year and I said, Corey, I'm just curious, those bullseye putters, do they have loft on both sides of the face? Because as we all know, putters are not vertical. They have a slight degree of loft to them. And Corey Pavin says, "Let me guess, you're going righty on the long ones and lefty on the short ones." I'm like, "How could you possibly know?" He said, "We've seen everything."
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, Corey Pavin, one of the few people on the planet who's had both a bar mitzvah and a baptism. So shout out to Corey. It's the holiday season. He's very inclusive.
Did he? Why is that? Did he marry into a Jew? His wife is Jewish?
No, he was Jewish. He grew up Jewish, and then he went. He gave his life to Christ, and so
wow.
Yeah,
but he saved a little bit for golf. But quick note on that one year at Hilton Head, the week after the Masters, Easter Sunday and Passover Sunday fell on the same Sunday, and I said to Corey, "Are you accepting dual holiday greetings?" He said, "Absolutely." He was very good natured about it.
That's funny. I did a big feature story on Corey Pavin again in that little sort of that weird in between when I finished my internship and before I started full time at SI, and it was the winter of '94, and so it was before he won at Shipnuck, and that was like the whole thing of the story. Best player without a major. Can Corey do it? The gritty gutty Bruin. We shared UCLA roots. He did have a sweet UCLA license rim on his black Porsche, which I appreciated as a fellow Bruin. And so we went out fishing, because when you do these feature stories, you got to do something. And I'm not much of a fisherman. I don't think Corey is either. So he's casting his line, and this is at a lake wherever he lived in Orlando. And this fucking alligator snapped at whatever the lure was, and he hooked a little baby alligator. And he's like, "Oh my God, this is terrible! You can't catch alligator. This is a violation of state law." So I was like, "Well, what are we supposed to do?" So he's trying to gently reel the gator in. I was thinking, okay, if he gets this thing on the boat, he's got $1 million hands. He's not the one who's going to pull the lure out of this gator's mouth.
Alan Shipnuck gets major champions fingers bitten off while fishing for a story.
Yeah, they start calling me 7-Finger Joe or whatever.
Does anyone associated with irons quite like Corey Pavin and those horrendous VAS irons that he used? I mean, no one's random golfers. I mean, and I know Corey's not totally random, but I'm saying outside of the greats, no one is associated with a set of irons more than Corey Pavin and those Cleveland irons.
Yeah, maybe Calcavecchio with the Ping Eye too, but so he was playing them at that moment in time in winter of '94, and so we went to the range and he's hitting balls with them, and I'm like,
a shovel tied to the end of a shaft.
I know. I was like, I'm just beating around the bush. So Corey, how do you think these irons have changed your game? And Corey, do you have any second thoughts about? And Corey, is there anything in the technology that doesn't help you work the ball? And he's like, just go ahead and ask it. Just ask it. I said, okay, were those irons a fucking mistake or what? And he's like,
what the hell were those things?
Well, Alan, did you write about them before or after the U.S. Open win?
Before. So I think the story came out in maybe February of '95, and he won that U.S. Open later that year.
What did he win with that U.S. Open with?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, everyone remembers the photos.
They'd still be being made if it was with those.
Yeah, I think he must have switched them out, but he still had them when I was hanging out with him in Orlando around.
Was it that perimeter weighted club that VAS was out of?
Yeah, the VAS, and it was it had a little. It was the shaft wasn't at the end of the club head. They were shovels, basically shovels, and they had purple backs. It was insane.
They were insane. I mean,
maybe don't make a Patrick Reed joke because he still could be trigger happy with the lusters.
He's got one dismissed. Looking for some more.
I think we can all agree that when in a bunker, it's appropriate to shovel out the sand behind your ball. We would never disparage Patrick Reed,
especially at an exhibition match, an exhibition tournament like the Hero World Challenge.
They're giving out copious world ranking points.
Alan, did Corey Pavin, did he captain that Ryder Cup team, that team we played that year we played that really good golf course in Wales? Was that his team?
Yes. Yeah, Royal Porthcawl, which you never remember.
Royal Porthcawl. Let me tell you something. That was by far the most memorable part of that week.
Oh, yeah.
That was such an unmemorable Ryder Cup.
Well, I didn't anticipate this fire drill would devolve into Corey Pavin content, but yes, that was an epic Ryder Cup, because remember the captainess, his wife, was naked, wrapped in a flag on the cover of this magazine, and the British press went crazy with that. And then
what?
Yeah, and then there was this cock up with the rain gear, and
Oh,
it
yeah,
was
I remember that.
and
The leaky rain gear, yes.
the leaky rain gear, and the freaking it flooded out the golf course. Like, you're in Wales, you can anticipate it's going to rain. Why do they pick a golf course at the bottom of a valley? And it was just like an absolute clown show from start to finish. And of course, the U.S. played.
When you had one of the best golf courses in the world down the street.
Yeah, way better than the host venue. Yes, go ahead, Ryan.
Jake might have to cut this out, but we'll deem it. Marty Carr from the UTI told me this joke, and it has to do with Wales. A guy walks into a bar in the UK.
Oh, Jake's coming in. That's never a good sign.
So I'm not sure if this will be in the podcast or not, but while we were talking, Michael was doing an internet search. We could hear it in the background, and so our producer Jake Muldowney scolded him. It reminds me. I just started watching this show last night. Have you heard of Fleischman is in Trouble?
No.
I think the protagonist might be Jewish.
Yes, for sure.
Just to keep the theme going here.
It's the holidays. And oh my God, it is A+. It's based on a book that I loved, and it is so funny. It's basically like, it's on Hulu.
Okay.
It's the kid who was in The Social Network, which, sidebar, I think is one of the best movies this century. And Claire Danes is in it. And Michael, you'll appreciate this. It's like basically a modern telling of Portnoy's Complaint, and it is laugh out loud funny. So that's just a little, for those of you who are looking to. It's just started. I think there are only 3 episodes into the first season. It is A++.
Glad to know it,
but not a family viewing. Yeah.
Can we talk about finally golf? I've told this show needs to be about golf, and here we are not talking about golf, except for VAS irons, which are great. The 25th ranked player, which is ridiculous and ironic, won again in Australia. And
wait, is Cam down to 25?
Yeah, I think so.
No way.
I think so.
Oh, I haven't looked. That's an absolute farce. So I was actually going to bring this up. So Cam Smith won the Australian PGA, and we know that various tainted Player of the Year awards go out.
He's number 3.
Yeah, what the hell, Ryan? I mean, he will keep dropping inexorably, but no, he's still up there. But I was gonna ask this question: who is the Player of the Year in golf? You have Rory, who won the FedEx Cup and the Race to Dubai and various other tournaments and played at an exceptionally high level, or you have Cam Smith, who won the Players flagship event of the PGA Tour, ironically. He's won on the Live Tour. He's won in Australia, happened to win a little tournament in St. Andrews. I mean, to me, it's got to be Cam, but there are...
What about John Rahm winning on 3 continents, as he likes to tell us?
Yeah, he deserves mention, but, smaller time tournaments.
It's Cam Smith.
It's Cam Smith.
I mean,
Michael, do you want to even make an argument for Rory just for the sake of making an argument?
Come on.
We dare you.
You're wrong.
We dare you. Double dog dare.
No.
Okay. It's Cam Smith.
I think it brings up a bigger point, though, is like Cam Smith still is third. I he's going to fall, right? I don't know how long this win helps him, and I don't know how to OD it. Well, eventually, if he just continues to play, live events and they don't get points. If he drops to say 20th and you're the 19th ranked player, it becomes an obsolete ranking system. When everyone knows that there's X amount of players, however many at that time, live players are falling down the list. Like it just devalues the OWGR to a joke, basically.
Well, Michael, you wrote a column about this a few days ago on firepitcollective.com. What are your thoughts about the current state of the OWGR?
I mean, truly, I never really thought of it just the way that Ryan worded that. But it's true. I mean, now Cam Smith is not going to have any problems getting to any tournaments because of what he's won. He's set for at least the next 5 years and probably a lot longer than that. I think I feel like it was never truly worthwhile. A lot of people would argue that it is, but I don't see what purpose it serves now. And I posed that question, Davis Love is the person who planted this idea in my head that we don't really need the world golf ranking. Upon further review, what he's really saying is they shouldn't use, every tour should have its own ranking system. And this is actually from David Fay, the former executive director of the USGA. His idea was that the 4 majors should get together and they should decide on the criteria for getting into the majors and only the majors. Let Liv do its thing. Let the PGA Tour do its thing. Let the DP World Tour do its thing. And I think that's great sense. Alan and I, as you and I have talked about before, I'm sure Ryan knows this as well. It's a commercial venture that was invented by the guy who founded IMG and another guy to get their international players into more tournaments. As Dean Beeman, the former PGA Tour commissioner, told me last week, when McCormick came up with it, and this is funny, he wasn't being altruistic.
Yeah, I mean, that would be like if we came up with the official world golf media rankings and the three of us were 1, 2, and 3, and everyone else was below us. It'd be like, okay, that's slightly suspicious. I mean, we could invent some metric to justify it, but you have to.
It's like John Garrity belongs in the top 3 of all time,
yes,
according to us.
Yes, I know, emeritus at least. But
Claire Rogers from Golf Magazine. You both worked with her, said that we should do a pit for media members, and see where everybody ranks, and just pay off the best. I mean, let's do it.
I mean, we need an independent body to pay it out, though. You can't have it come from the tour. Yeah. But I
don't know if the tour's too independent.
That's what I'm saying. We should get the Pulitzer Commission. Will they get into the pit business?
What would it be, Ryan? What is her point?
I'm just saying, it's like
she was being
cheeky.
Ranking. She was just it was a joke. It was a joke.
Like Tiger didn't do anything. So let's say I don't know, somebody who's retired or doesn't write much anymore. You guys would know better, but they would automatically win because they were great forever, right?
It'd be like Dan Jenkins. Like Dan Jenkins winning the PIP, even though he's fucking dead. Yeah,
yeah. Just be like, I mean, he's been the greatest. That's all there is.
He invented modern golf journalism. Let's give him an honorarium forever. Yeah, it's like the dream with Tiger.
Well, can I pose? Al, may I pose a quick question here on the subject of PIP? And I know you're going to get to it. What do you both think? In his heart of hearts, he wouldn't admit it, not even to Erica. Does Tiger Woods think about him winning the $15 million first place PIP grand prize, even though he played in about 3 events?
Well, he knows it's lame, but I think I remember Michael Jordan when because the salary cap and stuff, he finally signed his first big contract. It was like for $30 million. And it was by far the biggest contract in the league. And he complained he was still underpaid because that was factual. So I'm sure Tiger's like, I've always been underpaid. So this is like back pay. I think he sees it as something that he's owed and that he's due. And however cheeseball the mechanism is to put it in his pocket, I don't think he's that mad about it.
I think if you gave him truth serum, and you said, well, he would go, yeah, it's ridiculous, but if they're going to pay it, I definitely deserve it. And he would be right. I mean, if they're going to give it to anybody, it's a ridiculous. I just said this in a text to a player. I don't know if the player, just say it. Just to be like, hey, this is it. We make fun of Liv for these guaranteed contracts. Tiger's going to get whatever the first place prize for PIP is in perpetuity is going to be to Tiger Woods. So just say it's part of his just say, hey, we're going to give Tiger Woods $45 million or $100 million or whatever. Don't try to claim that there's some metric that measures it. It's insane. Just say, hey, Tiger's been great for this game. He's an important part of it. He's going to limp out there a couple times a year and we're going to write him a check for $15 million. That's it. It's okay. No one would be mad at that.
Yeah, I made this point in a recent Ask Alan, and the one thing the tour had going for it in this battle for hearts and minds against Liv is that it was a meritocracy, and you got to earn it over here. And over on Liv, they're just giving away money, and they're tainting the competition, and they're demotivating the players. But now the tour's doing that too, because like you said, there was never any doubt that Tiger and Rory would be 1-2 in the PIP just as a thank you for their advocacy. And we knew that Justin Thomas would be 3 or 4 because he was outspoken. It's it is just a slush fund to buy these guys loyalty.
No one's mad about it. Okay, we want to keep our best players, so we're going to make them whole. I mean, that's it is what it is.
And to Alan's point about, the whole point of the PGA Tour is earn it. Why not just do it on a meritocracy basis? And just pay more money to the players who finish at the top of the money list.
Because Tiger wouldn't be there. Because Tiger's never going to be near the top of the list. And Rory's not going to be either. I mean, Rory might be, but if he like splits up his time between Europe and here, they just want to pay their best players.
But that's what the FedEx Cup is, Michael. There's this, it's guaranteed up to a point, but you sort of have to earn it. Like, but it's the fix is kind of in. Like, they've already done that. I love
Corey Connors, but the tour doesn't want to pay Corey Connors any extra money. Okay, like if he won the money list and they got 15 more million, they'd be like, Jesus, like this one's going to hurt. I got to write a $15 million check to Corey Connors. To be fair to the people listening, I love Corey Connors. I think he deserves it. Go ahead.
I think the real question is, does the tour want to be true to what the tour has always represented? And sadly, it's not. And I think actually that's going to cost the tour in the long run.
I think they want to, Michael. They can't. I mean, their other choice is to let, if they don't do anything, if they didn't do these elevated events, if they didn't do PIP, eventually the money being dangled by the Live Tour just becomes too good, in my opinion. I mean, it already has been too good for very top players. If there wasn't some change on the PGA Tour, again, I don't really blame the PGA Tour for changing. I blame them for this like bullshit that they put out, that there's some metric to measure PIP. I mean, just say it again.
Yeah.
Just it's fine.
Well, there is a metric, but it's ridiculous.
Well, so to the point, does Tiger deserve the top PIP money? So they had these 5 categories, and he was actually number 1 in Google searches among all golfers, which is it definitely would be tied to the public interest. There's the meltwater mentioned.
But Alan, quick note on that. Sadly, you could drive off the side of a road and kill, and that's a terrible word to use. You could drive off the side of the road and do very well in Google searches.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Same with Meltwater, which is social media. He was number 1. Q Score, which is
again, that's it. That's the perfect right. Like social media, he's terrible at social media, right? Like he doesn't do anything. Like his agents do it, his PR team does it. And I understand he doesn't want to do it. He doesn't need to do it. So his PR team does it. Like that's what I'm saying.
But like if Tiger posts one swing video, it dominates social media. Like so. Right. The tour they are trying to quantify it, but it is.
They all got in a room and go, "Hey guys, we need to quantify Tiger winning every year. So come up with a system that Tiger wins every year."
I know, but if you do a deep dive on the on some of the PIP stuff, it is funny. Like, John Rahm went from 9th to 5th, which meant extra many millions of dollars, but he didn't actually pass anybody. It just the Live guys got
everybody
taken out.
Left.
Yeah, Mickelson, DeChambeau, DJ, and Brooks were excised, and that's how Rahm went from 9th to 5th. He's not even more popular than ever was, but the other guys.
Can either of you explain to me this absolute weirdness by which some guys got paid based on what the rules will be in 2023? I really didn't understand that.
Yeah. So that was. Hideki and Cam Young, and Sam Burns.
And Cam Young. I believe that those 2 players were possibly going to sign with Liv, and magically they've gotten another $2 million. It's like it's a fixed system. There's no possible way it is because the tour is completely upstanding. They would never do that. It's just
I didn't even understand.
Coincidental.
Ryan, I didn't even understand. Alan, can you explain the footnote?
The footnote is they didn't want those guys to leave, so they gave them $2 million extra dollars.
Right.
The Phillies might win the World Series next year, and they played pretty darn well this year, so we're going to give them a World Series ring anyhow. I don't get it.
Yeah, that's it. The tour basically said, we're going to change the rules next year. But if the new rules were in effect this year, these guys would have finished in the top 20. So we don't want to penalize them for an old system, which is still the current system. So we're going to give them money under the new system, which doesn't exist yet.
Completely coincidental that those 2 players were in talks with Liv.
Alan, you know that 5,000 word piece that you might or might not write about how Tim Fincham got into Augusta National? Yeah. It already won the 2024 Golf Writers Association Award for news. So I wouldn't even bother writing it at this point.
I will look forward to getting the plaque in the mail. The whole thing is so nutty. But I agree with both of you, Michael. Like I do think that this damages the tour's standing, and it makes them look ridiculous, and it makes them look cheesy. And I agree with Ryan that they had to do something, and this was some way to hand out the money, and so this is where we are.
I mean, that second part's really interesting to me because why do you feel he had to do something? In other words, if you redefine yourself to such a degree that you're not what you have been, then are you actually defeating your own stated purpose?
Well, Michael, this is the difference: is you're an idealist and Ryan is a realist. And I agree with what you're saying, that the tour has always been a symbol of merit, and it's always been the ultimate proving ground. But those days are over. I mean, the landscape has changed so dramatically that human nature being what it is, when the money being so big, the tour had to fight for its top players, and you can't do that with pats on the back, and you can't do it with feel good TV commercials. You got to do it with cold, hard cash. That's what the name of the game is. And they had to find a system, and this is what they came up with.
You see, I think if those so-called best players left, then, as Nicholas has been saying this for a while, then new best players would emerge.
Eventually, but who's the best player who's emerged in the last couple of years? It's Cam Smith. He's gone.
Cam Young, someone will come up.
Yeah, but Cam Young was almost gone. And if they didn't do all these things and they didn't give it to him, he's probably already gone.
Well, and Scotty Scheffler would be the other player who's really emerged in the last 12 to 18 months. And we all love the guy, but he's boring as hell. And it's hard to build it. I mean, are you gonna make Scotty Scheffler your show pony? Like, if they lost Spieth and they lost Rory, come on. You're right. Eventually new players fill the void, but not if you're considered a AAA of golf. Like, you got to have an argument about what's the best tour in order to have some value to create new stars.
You see, I think there's a built-in supposition to what you both are saying, that the
Michael,
world has some Ryan.
What the
go
fuck
ahead,
is supposition? What is that?
Keep talking, Michael. Ignore him.
I think there's a built-in supposition to what you guys are saying, that there's some kind of demand for a global golf tour. And I don't think there is. The best players did gravitate to the United States, including Seve, Greg Norman, and many others over the years, Cam Smith and Rory McIlroy, because the tour had, the best events, the best range balls, of course, the highest purses and all the rest. But it was still an American tour, and there was a European tour, and there was an Asian tour. And I don't really think that's ever going to change. And at some point, this LIV tour is going to have to, I don't know. I just don't actually think it's going to fly as a global tour, because there's no history of that ever succeeding. There's a history for the opposite, and that's why the four majors are the four majors.
Michael, I agree with that part in some sense, but it doesn't mean the players of today wouldn't leave. Like, obviously everybody has a price within reason. I mean, Cam Smith, I don't think he was lying when he said, hey, I have enough money, I want to buy fishing boats, whatever. And then they put out whatever they put out, $200 million for him to go. And he's like, oh, well, $200 million is still $200 million. I mean, I just don't, I don't think the players would care enough with the right price. And I mean, they've made a ton of inroads. They have some of the best they have, people can argue about this all the time, but at some point they have 7 of the top 10, or 7 players that have been in the top 10. I mean, they have some of the best players. The DJ and Brooks were the best player in the world not too long ago, and they're gone.
They're gone, and they're gone from our consciousness. I mean, when do you ever think about either of those guys?
I just wrote a story about Brooks's brother, so a lot, and he turned me down for what's his agent's name? Jeff Blake. Jeff Blake was the Bengals quarterback.
Blake Smith.
Smith. Hey, Blake, if you're listening, next time.
It was Blake. It was a bad choice, Blake. This is such a humanizing story, and the whole world thinks Brooks is a dick. This would have been a nice chance for him to show that he's a caring, loving big brother and show a softer side. And it was anyway. Let's move on. But I mean, we can talk about this forever. I think, again, you guys are both right. Yes, Michael, there's not a ton of interest in LIV golf other than the noise around it. No one's bought into the competition yet. And it may be in 3 or 5 years, it does kind of fizzle out, but the PGA Tour could not give up its stars for that long. And, Sam Burns is another guy who's really emerged in the last few years. And there's no golf fan that has the same emotional investment in Sam Burns as they do in Jordan Spieth. Like, you can't replace one with the other and think it's not going to hurt the tour. I'm not saying Jordan was ever even close to leaving, but like, it's those top guys, they drive the whole sport. I mean, when Jordan is playing well, there is an electricity around the golf world that you can't just plug another player in and think that people are going to care in the same way. It's a unique confluence of personality and game and history. And, so the tour had to keep their guys. They just did.
I don't agree. I really do believe it's golf that drives golf, and whoever wins, Curtis Strange became Curtis Strange on the basis of winning. There was a period, after Nicklaus's heyday and even Watson's heyday in the 80s, when they sort of looked like automatons and you couldn't tell the difference between, John Cook and the next guy. But first off,
but there was no other place to watch golf, Michael. Now there is. That's the difference. It's like,
really, what is the other place to watch golf?
Live. I'm saying there's another.
Name 3 people.
I love that look. Yeah. I'm just saying there's another place to get it. Like, people. I totally agree with you, Michael. I've said it many times. Live is like a snooze fest to me. I'm not disagreeing with you. From a golf perspective, I want the PGA Tour to be the place that I watch my golf. It's just the way it is. But
there hasn't been another place to get it because Live has not been on TV. So, like, yes, this year, you're right, Michael. There really wasn't. But assuming that this TV deal happens before Live launches in February, like, that will be a game changer. If you can walk into a grill room in a Muni course and they have Live on, or you can just, while you're channel surfing, you can easily
and the
find
Niblets.
it.
The Niblets are ahead of the Red Dragons by
but
4
But
strokes.
the point is, if you're a casual golf fan and you can choose between watching like a Dustin, Cam Smith, Brooks Koepka, Bryson DeChambeau shootout versus Sam Burns beating Corey Connors, I think a lot of people will default to the players that they know. And so this year was a beta test for Live, and I don't think we could really make any serious or draw any serious conclusions until the end of 23, when they've had a full year on TV and they've baked out their concept and they're not just building the plane while they fly it. So I think the jury's still out of this question. I like that I appreciate the courage of your convictions, Michael, and that's part of this forum, is we're free to disagree with each other. But I think Live can evolve into something that people will watch passively. They may not care as much, but I think.
Did you say passionately?
I said passively. It's just kind of on, and you enjoy
passively.
it.
Yeah. Right. That's a big difference, because to me, the things that we're drawn to actually have some cultural or emotional impact on our lives. Like, let's say, like the winner of the baseball World Series played the winner of the Japan Baseball League's World Series. It would be novel and it would be sort of interesting, but it wouldn't be bigger than the World Series. It'd just be some added on thing. I think they've got an immense challenge ahead of them. And, also, even like every once in a while, there's a freakish event on the PGA Tour, like they're at Tampa, and Sean O'Hare plays good. It's like, wow, where's this guy been? And it's so beautiful because he earned his way in. He earned his way into the final group. And now, like, let's see what this skinny kid can do. I mean, that to me is golf.
How old is Sean O'Hare? Go, guess.
43.
I was going to say 41.
Hold on. Don't know. I'm going to say 39. Sean O'Hare is 40 years old.
Yeah.
Good call, Alan. Hey, this is a fun little bit. Name their age.
How old is he?
Let's not. There's a bit that just ended. But even talking about how much money is in professional golf.
You see the power of being the host, Brian, because I would love to ask you how old you think Chrissy Kim is, but I can't because that bit is over. Yeah. Sorry. It's a great question. Love to know what you think.
Right.
But we'll never get your answer.
Yeah. Well, whatever Alan wants to talk about. Go ahead, Alan. What are we talking about now?
It's not about me. It's about the listeners, and we don't want to test their patience while Ryan searches the internet on a dial-up modem.
By the way, Ryan, Alan Shipnuck has been one of my good friends for 25 years. I cannot tell you his age.
Yeah,
within a half decade.
Let's guess everybody's age
every
on this
2
spot.
years, I have to ask Shipnuck, are you older or younger than Tiger Woods? And even right now, I can't remember.
Yeah, older. Actually, I have a big birthday coming up in May. I'll be eligible for the senior tour. So,
oh my god,
I know.
Well, that makes things easier. I think I can remember that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay. Speaking of Tiger Woods, we got to touch on this because Tiger Month is about to begin. I mean, he's playing 3 times.
You know
December.
How much he's going to make for those 3 tournaments? $15 million.
Well, there's guaranteed payout at the Hero World Challenge too. So,
and at the father-son, I'm sure there's an appearance fee at that. It's a non-sanctioned event.
Yeah. So I mean, in a few days, the Hero kicks off down in the Bahamas, and it's obviously a great field. Tiger, and they're giving out world ranking points. There's only 20 guys there, so
Tiger's going to move up 1,000 spots just by teeing it up. Or he could.
I know. So for all the tour purists who love to bag on Liv for trying to get world ranking points, this is a tough week for them.
Tough week,
tough week, really tough week. And then, of course, I'm sort of looking forward to the match 7. And they're using Roman numerals, another affront to the Liv people. The match V11. But that's a lost star power. It's Tiger and Rory against JT and Spieth. I mean, I'll watch that. It's always awkward. They're mic'd up. They're trying to be funny and they're not. And Tiger's brooding, and JT's being petulant. Like their true selves always come out eventually. But that to me that'll be worth watching. It's under the lights on a Saturday night pretty much after all the football's over.
Is Mickelson doing the play-by-play, Alan?
Yeah. So, I mean, he should. That would be epic. But Mickelson has been booted out of the franchise.
That's one of the biggest losses of Phil leaving. I mean, he was going to be the best announcer in golf history. I mean, he was going to be unreal, and now gone forever.
I mean, if Liv is smart, they'd put him up there in the booth with Faraday.
That is really well said, Alan.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's really a brilliant idea.
If they didn't have shotguns, you could do it like put Phil the morning wave, then he commentates in the afternoon kind of thing. But unfortunately, he's on the course at the same time. But maybe he'll mysteriously sprain his wrist, and he'll just be in the booth for all of next year. He would be way more valuable on the mic than between the 100%.
ropes. By the way, just quick before we get more into this, Sean O'Hare has $25 million in career earnings. $25 million.
Oh, I was going to say that. We got sidetracked. So talking about there's all this new money in golf. Well, there's always been money in golf because years ago I was talking to Paul Casey, who's a big Porsche guy. He now has a deal and he's got a bunch of Porsches. And he was talking about Sean O'Hare's Ferrari collection. I was like, Sean O'Hare has Ferraris? God, I should have worked on my short game. This was when Sean O'Hare was in the depths of a multi-year slump. It's always been decadent out there, but it's gotten way more so. But I've rarely been that flabbergasted by any piece of information.
Yeah, it was Sean O'Hare. Nothing against him; he's had a good career, especially when he's young. But when he's owning Ferraris, things are going well.
Very well.
I've seen him fly coach with me West Palm to Philadelphia. So,
well, maybe he sold them off. But at that moment in time, whenever that was, I want to say it was 2013 or 14. I was like, God damn. And then, of course, just to finish off the Tiger bit, and we'll talk about these things when they actually happen. But talking about Tiger Month, the 5th major is now the father-son. But that's the week before Christmas, and I said this again in one of my mailbags that I think at this moment in time that Charlie Woods is the single most valuable commercial property in golf. If you could sign any player for any endorsement, I think it's Charlie Woods, because you also get Tiger with him and you're going to go on this journey with him. If I became CEO tomorrow of whatever, AT&T, and I could only sign one player, it would be Charlie Woods. The interest in that kid. And he's got a beautiful golf swing. He's great looking. He's multicultural. He's got the most famous name in sports. So the Charlie content that week is going to be out of control because he's gotten bigger and stronger, and he's hitting it farther. And it's people are just obsessed with him. So I'm not saying it's an indictment of popular culture and the marketplace and everything else. But I honestly believe that Charlie Woods is more valuable than Rory McIlroy or Dustin Johnson or John Rahm or any of them.
Yeah, the PGA Tour is rooting hard for Charlie Woods to bring it home, and in a couple of years, like skip college, be good enough at like 19 or 20 to go directly to the PGA Tour. I mean, they are all in, because if Charlie Woods becomes any sort of player, the tables have turned again back towards the PGA Tour. I try not to be serious on this show, but I just really hope that Charlie Woods can find happiness, because being Tiger Woods' kid's got to be. I just wrote an article about Chase. Not easy to be the little brother of a best player in the world. This is honestly on a humongously another level than that, 25 or 30 times or 100 times above that. The kid of Tiger Woods has got some real pressure, especially because he plays the game at a somewhat good level now. He's not like a top of the world, but he's getting better. And I just hope the kid finds some happiness. That's way too serious for this podcast, but you're never going to live up to what your dad did. It's impossible. And everybody's, or the general public, is going to expect you to be something. And I hope that if he wins one Korn Ferry event and never does anything, that he's happy.
I do think that actually, in a weird way, the pressure is lower on Charlie, because we know he can't be as good as his dad. Nobody can. And it's also, I mean, you know about this very well, Michael, like in the long history of golf, there's been many sons who follow their fathers, and there's been brothers. It's very rare. I mean, is Bill Haas, is he the best, progeny of a tour player to come along? Who else is in the conversation? But it's not like there's been these multi-generation dynasties.
Yeah. Davis Love Jr.
The Quigleys.
Quigley's,
Brett
yeah.
Quigley and Dana.
Yeah.
Davis Love Jr. played some tournament golf, and Davis 3 played.
Ray
better.
Floyd's kid played for a while.
Yeah, Robert. Yeah,
Gary Player's kids were one
None
son.
of them were successful.
Gary Nicklaus.
Successful in golf.
Yeah,
and a lot of them, unfortunately, weren't successful
in life.
In other things in life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, I think if Charlie could, and again, it's an incredibly high bar. If you could even just be an everyday tour player and maybe squeak out a win here or there, like he would probably be the second greatest son in golf history behind Bill Haas. Like that would be an accomplishment. So
yeah.
Alan, is there even a single example of a daughter of a LPGA player who made it onto the tour, a second generation LPGA player?
Yeah, that's
none
a great
comes readily
question.
to mind for me.
No, that's true. I know Annika's kids are really into it. She has a son and a daughter, but no, I can't think of any. That's a great point. I mean, I think golf is really it's really a sport of fathers and sons. I mean, Ryan, you've written very eloquently about the relationship you had with your dad, and that's how so many people are drawn to the game. It's interesting because, I'm writing about Greg Norman, all the time, but especially for this Live book. And another typing colleague of ours, Tom Callahan, had a great riff about how, it's always about fathers and sons in golf, but there's only two mama's boys out there. One is Faldo, and his mom was really the driving force in his career. And the other is Norman, because Norman's dad didn't play golf. It was his mom, and Norman's exposure to the game was caddying for his mom. And so it's interesting that that's just one way they're linked, but it's hard to think of any others. You could say Tiger in some ways, because Tita kind of gave him that killer instinct, and she was a huge part of his career as well. But we all know Earl gets all the credit. So it's an interesting debate. I mean, we'll see how Charlie plays. It's all eyes are on Tiger, but in a weird way, Charlie's a bigger star coming, the father son.
Have you made any? Are you going to try to reach Norman's parents? I believe they're still alive.
Yeah, I put some feelers out. I mean, it's an interesting challenge. This book, this lawsuit, this antitrust lawsuit between the tour and Live Golf has given everyone cover to say no to interviews and to try and lock things down. But I'm starting to crack that a little bit. When I said I was talking about that show Fleischman, and you said Ari Fleischer, Ryan,
that's right.
I'm actually dealing with Ari Fleischer because he's
he's ahead of Live or whatever. He's like something, whatever.
He's basically like a general counsel in some ways to them.
Okay.
And so like I pretty much have to, I think, convince him to, if I'm going to get some more FaceTime with Norman, even though, you know, I talked to Norman in the parking lot at Portland. We had this like come to Jesus conversation for a half an hour. And he said he shook my hand. He looked me in the eye and said, yeah, let's sit down. I'll tell you everything. But, you know, everyone has a boss, including Greg Norman. So he's been put on ice for now, but this is all subject to negotiation and revision. So it's a fun challenge, Michael.
He's a really interesting person to write about because, you know, he is a bright person. He's a charismatic person. And he must be extremely popular because it seems like everything that he attaches his name to sells. And yet it seems like he's also one of the most reviled figures in golf. I've spent a lot of time with Norman. I've always found him very enjoyable, really, just to be with. I'm really sort of perplexed by, you know, this whole thing. You know, if we've heard it from many people, Rory and Davis, and even Commissioner Jay Monahan, and he's brash, and there's a lot of things you could say about him, but I don't see the level of vitriol for him. I don't really know where that comes from. Do you have an insight into that, Alan? Was it always there? Or did it come out of Liv? Has Tiger stirred it up in some ways since there's such animosity between those two?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've been going back and reading a lot of old stuff about Norman, old magazine profiles, old newspaper clippings, biographies, and everyone seems to think he's really fun to hang out with. If you can just go out fishing with him, or you can sit around and drink a Foster's. He does have a lot of charm and charisma, but you put him in the arena, whether it's at a golf tournament or it's in a boardroom, and there's a different side to him. And he gets very defensive. He's very bitter. He's very calculating. And so I think your experience is genuine, Michael. Like if you could just be around him one-on-one, I think it's good company. But you know, Butch Harmon had a great quote that I dug up somewhere. He's like, "There's just two Greg Normans." Back
to your point, Michael, I mean, I think a lot of the general public probably likes Greg Norman because they just don't know the other side of him. Same with Phil, right? This is like he kind of fooled everybody for a long time, and maybe Liv has made it more prominent for both of them, obviously, in the book and whatnot. But like, you know, the general golfing public liked Greg Norman because he was good looking and he was good and talked, you know, like articulate and fun. And Phil was fun and thumbs up and all that kind of, and people loved him. The general golf public loved him. The people on the inside probably like, yeah, he's an asshole.
Yeah, no, the parallels are very interesting because Norman and Mickelson have never been friends. I mean, Norman's about 15 years older, but they're definitely kindred spirits. There's a lot of similarities there, and they're even the way they played the game, right? You know, reckless to the point of they won a lot of tournaments and they lost a lot of tournaments, but the way they lived the life is kind of similar, as you're saying, Ryan. Like they've left a lot of wreckage behind them, and it's wild that they are now their fortunes and their legacies are linked in some ways. There's just a very similar energy around both of them, so it's kind of fun to unwind that. As obviously I went deep on Phil, and now I'm doing the same on Norman. And
you might want to save you may want to save this for the book. But what is Norman bitter about? I mean, he came over here with nothing but some golf shirts, and look at him now. Why is he bitter?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I mean, the guy's always the man who had everything, right? And it was never enough, and there was a voraciousness there, almost like an emptiness, and if there's something devoid at your core, you're always trying to fill it up with other things. And I think that's kind of been the story of Norman's life.
For Greg, hasn't it always just been the fight to conquer, like kind of the Chris Everett, right? Like, oh, hey, I'm gonna marry Chris Everett, and now I'm not even gonna live with her, and we're gonna be divorced in a few minutes. Like if Liv becomes the most popular golf and the PGA Tour is dead, I don't think that's going to happen. But let's just say it does. Greg's going to leave because, like that's it. He like once if Liv ever gets to the top of the golf world, Greg's going to leave because he's all about the fight. It seems from the outside. I don't know nothing about him. Never had any conversations with him. Just saying, like, just looks like from the outside, everything he's done has kind of been like the fight, and then when the fight's over, he's just like, yeah, I'm out of here.
Yeah, it's true. He kind of thrives on conflict, it seems like, and it's an interesting thing. I mean, he's always been an outsider, right? Trying to conquer Europe early in his career, then coming to America. He always had to kind of scrap for acceptance. And then he was the best player in the world, and he had all the endorsements, and he was on the throne. And then that ultimate humiliation of trying to get the world tour going. And, that's obviously a seminal moment in all of this, but there's a pattern here. Like he's always been the outsider, and I think he thrives on it, but it also, it embitters him because he doesn't have that acceptance that he craves so deeply. And so he's a fascinating character, and it's, he was the most important guy in global golf for a long time. And you could argue he is once again, which is exactly how he wants it.
I mean, it is amazing. People, Ryan's age and younger would, talk so much about how Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth and Rory McIlroy, modeled their golfing lives and ambitions over Tiger Woods. But in the history of golf, there's never been a study of a golfer closer than Tiger Woods, mimicking the life and times of Greg Norman. I'm surprised that story is not more widely known. But between Butch Harmon and Steve Williams and Greater Jupiter, Florida, and just so many, driving it long and in play, really focusing on distance control is the number one goal of your irons. The work ethic of both was extraordinary. Butch Harmon, if I didn't mention that, it's just a long, long list. But I don't think the general public has really even picked up on that. And I believe the order goes, Alan, you'll know this better than I. I think Greg Norman was the number one player in the world, according to the official World Golf Rankings, as founded by Mark McCormick. Oh, they both went to IMG. And then I think the next guy was Tiger Woods. Is that correct?
Yeah. I have to look into that.
96 or 7?
There was Tom Lehman was world number one for 1 week in there. It's like one of my favorite.
I think it probably went from Norman to Woods.
There was a passing of the mantle for sure. And even, the 96 Masters, of course, which is a defining moment in Norman's career. He comes back in 97, so hell-bent on redemption, and he misses the cut and Tiger wins. And it's like Norman's career ended at that point. Like he was ceased to be relevant in any way. Now, Tiger eclipsed a lot of people, but Norman was hoping to have one last act, and that was it. It was over. And just the how jarring that was to go from one Masters to the next at 96, 97. Like what you're saying is true, Michael. Tiger stole what should have been Greg's in some ways, whether it was a caddy or it was a swing coach or it was a place in the game. And Harmon definitely, there was a fork in the road. He had to say, am I going to stay with Norman or am I going to go with Tiger? And obviously we know what he chose. And so
he chose
a guy like Norman's he chose correctly. A guy like Norman's not used to being spurned, and that burned him. Like there's always been no love lost between those two characters, Tiger and Norman. And you're seeing it still playing out. That was a quarter century ago, and they're still on opposite, sides of the ledger now. So it is interesting subtext, and that's definitely something I'm pursuing. But you're very perceptive there, Michael. Because
Norman loves to tell this story about they both live. I think it would be considered Jupiter Island, and they've got these little bridges to take you over the Intracoastal. And Norman loves to tell the story. And I'm sure Alan, you can get him to tell it. Where the bridge goes up, and Norman pulls up next to Tiger, and both in the same car. Norman's with his wife, and Norman's waving at Tiger. And Tiger's got that tunnel vision. He knows Norman's there, and he will not acknowledge him and wave back.
That's an entire book, that one moment, right? Like that tells you so much. And it's, so yeah, all those things are going to be fun part of this, what I'm typing. But
it says a lot about Tiger too. How about, so Norman, of course, did not win that 96 Masters, and Faldo did. And now Tiger wins the 97, and Faldo drapes that coat on Tiger Woods. There's never been a changing of the guard in golf more poignant than that. And, it's like, these super billionaires, why can't they all get along? Why can't Greg Norman, Nick Faldo, and Tiger Woods get along? Tiger loved Seve and Olathibal and, various others from that generation, but he really had a thing about those two.
Yeah.
And Watson. And I don't even think you like Ray Floyd that much.
No, Watson for sure. I mean, well, Johnny Miller had a great quote about this. It was a Jaime Diaz story, I remember. And Miller's like, yeah, us Hall of Fame guys, we don't really get along. It's just, he's like, it's just different personality. He's like, we're not meant to mix. And I'm paraphrasing, but there's something to that. I mean, it takes Nick Price was a nice guy who made number one. There's been a few, but you look at the best players, they tend to be dicks. I mean, we like just go. Ben Hogan was a gentleman, but he was certainly frosty. I mean, there's a personality type like a Faldo, like a Floyd, like a Tiger. I mean, Scotty Scheffler, nice guy, but some of the legends of the game, a lot of them are crusty, man. They got an edge, and that's just maybe what it takes. Well, all right, we're coming up on an hour. It's the witching hour. Any final thoughts for our listeners before we release them to get on with their lives after Thanksgiving?
No, happy Thanksgiving to all, and always a lot of fun. Alan, hope you're well. Look forward to seeing you in the new year.
Let's end on a serious note. We are thankful for the listeners out there because it gives us a reason to get out of bed. Like this.
I like your use of the plural, Alan.
Yes. Well, we all have various family members at the very least. So, but no, it's we do appreciate you guys tuning in and keeping this thing going. So we will be back for another Sunday fire drill. It'll be the conclusion of the Hero World Challenge. There'll be a lot to chew on, and maybe there'll be more Corey Pavin cameos. You never know what you're going to get on the fire drill.
I'm going to go buy a Cleveland set of vases right now.
Alan, if you do get Ari Fleischer, could you ask him if he's related to the late Bruce Fleischer, a great U.S. amateur champion and a great senior player from yesteryear, and really a terrific guy who passed away last year.
Well, that'll be my opening gambit. To see.
Hey, Ari, I know I'm writing a book, but before that, are you related to Bruce?
I mean, yeah, we're all related somehow, Michael. If we're going to get metaphysical here during the holiday season, but
deep. Thanks everybody for listening and making this a thing. And Michael and Alan, thank you both for all you have done for me and this podcast. That's it. I hate to be serious, but
it's okay, Ryan. You can be sappy. It's that time of year. So, all right, this has been another fire drill. I'm Alan Shipnuck. That was Ryan French, Michael Bamberger. We will do it again next week. Thanks for listening. That's the end.